we will continue talking about sounds. So far, we have looked at consonants and vowels, and then we were looking at places of articulations of different vowels and different consonants, and manners of articulations of different consonants and different vowels. While looking at manners of articulations of vowels, we have seen that there are only two ways that we look at it, particularly the ones that I have shown you so far. They could either be a short vowel and a long counterpart of that, where short and long are relative duration of their production. And according to places of articulations, vowels are either back vowel, mid vowel or front vowel. And again, this back, mid and front is this sort of organization is on the basis of the direction of flow of air, which is exhaling air. That this is why we have back, mid and front. Okay? Then we carefully started looking at some of these places where we have seen 5 different places of articulation so far, namely velum, from where we get velar sounds, palate, from where we get palatal sounds, teeth, we get dental sound, and lips, we get bilabial sounds, right? So, looking at this chart, once again, on the vertical axis we have places of articulations that I just mentioned to you, and then we saw that merely place of articulation, merely identifying place of articulation is not enough for understanding of sounds, because from each place of articulation we see various different sounds. And then we have to have more things to describe these sounds. And then once we look at this, once we look at 2 more features, such as aspiration, which is little bit extra flow of air, and voicing, which means vibration in vocal cord. By putting these 2 things together, we are able to get unique features for each sound that you have seen so far. And these many of these sounds are common to many languages. Some of them are specific to languages spoken in South Asia. I am going to show you some such sounds. However, there is one more point which is important to mention here, that these are not only few places of articulations in this picture. There could be more. For example, when we look at sounds like ta, right? Ta has a specific place of articulation. Ta is significantly different from ta. Can you hear the difference between the two when I say ta and ta? There is a significant difference between the two. The place of articulation for ta is teeth, where tip of the tongue goes very close or in between 2 teeth that are upper teeth and lower teeth, and then we get these sounds. However, the place of articulation for ta is different from teeth, which is what? Alveolar ridge, right? So, again looking at this picture, teeth, these are our teeth. See this? And I want to draw your attention here. beginning from here, the sharp part of teeth, all the way to this is alveolar ridge. So what would that be? In generic term, in general language, what would that be? How can we describe alveolar ridge in a simpler way? Because if I tell you alveolar ridge, right away this doesn't make much sense. It makes sense only when you know the term and when you know the place. So if you have to explain alveolar ridge to somebody, what will you do? The roof of the mouth has many things in it, like palate is also roof of the mouth. So more specific, that's nice term, roof of the mouth. But more specifically, how will you describe that? Should not be difficult, right? Roof adjoining teeth. Good. So the muscular area where upper teeth are infixed. Can we say that? That's the alveolar ridge. And in that area as well, it's the upper part, upper area is what we know as alveolar ridge. Okay? There is a reason why I am talking about that, and I bring you to that point in a moment. So is this clear? Alveolar ridge is the place of articulation. Then what else happens if we want to look at movement of tongue? What else is going on with that? When we get sound like t, say it for yourself, t. Because all of us being speakers of our languages, that is languages spoken in South Asia, we can say these sounds. Several other, like speakers of Arabic or English, may not be able to say this sound. Why? We'll look at that. But can you tell me about the position of lip, position of tongue in that alveolar ridge sound, and those sounds which come from alveolar ridge are called retroflex sounds. I have talked about velar, palatal, dental and labial so far, didn't tell you about retroflex. This is why I was holding them for this moment. So what's happening with the tongue? It's bending backwards. Can many of you say this? Ta, ta. See this thing? Can you give me some words where you see this sound? Ta? No. I come back to tennis in a minute. No. No. So, is this the spelling of tennis? Or my point is, I'm glad you gave these examples. I was going to give you these examples right away. When you were talking about these sounds, they are not sounds from alveolar ridge. However, when we say, by we I mean speakers of South Asian languages, we do make it sound like them. Okay? What do I mean by this difference? When I say we make it sound like them, I am going to tell you in a moment. But these are not the sounds from that part. Or the better way to put it is, when speakers of English say these things, then in that case, these sounds are not from alveolar ridge. And I am going to tell you about that place of articulation also in a moment. We are talking about sounds ta, ta, right? So give us some more words where you find that. I can give you a clue. Give me a word from our languages. Tomato. Tomato means? Okay. More? Have you heard a word called tum-tum? Yes? No? Some of you? Tum-tum is a horse carriage. Have you seen a horse carriage? Where did you see that? Movies, not in real life? Not yet? Wow. See how far we have moved? Okay, so tum-tum is a horse carriage, right? That's a word for tum-tum. Tum-tum is a word for horse carriage. More words with ta or tha. Have you heard a word called thug? Cheat, thug, right? Have you heard a word called danda? Danda? No? Danda? No, that is dand. Danda, stick. These are the sounds. Ta in tomato, tha in thug, and da in danda. Have you heard a word called dhakkan? Tap. And dhakkan is also metaphorically used for stupid. Right? Have you heard this word? Right? There are lots of words in abundance with these sounds in Dravidian languages as well. I don't speak a Dravidian language, either Telugu or Tamil, so I don't have a word for that. But if you think about the sound that I am talking about and try to find a word from that in Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam, there are lots of words with these sounds. Right? Can someone think about that and tell me? Some of the words from Telugu or Tamil or Malayalam with retroflex sounds. Ta, tha, da. No? No? Or are you still thinking about it? While you are thinking about it, let me continue saying, this is another live example of what we know as knowledge of language. I am telling you, and I know that for sure, that all Dravidian languages, to be more generic, all languages of South Asian part of the world have these sounds in abundance. When we say these sounds in abundance, we mean lot of words with these sounds. I gave you some of the words that I know. Now I am asking you for some of the words from these languages, the languages that you speak. The fact that you are not able to tell me those words with those sounds doesn't mean you don't know them. It's just that you know all those words, but you don't know that you know them. Okay? What's the last sound of the word Tamil? When I am saying, am I saying it correct when I say Tamil? No. Tamil? No. See this thing? So when I am saying it, I am not saying it correct. What is that sound? That sound is also a retroflex sound, which is not in this list, but that's also a retroflex sound. Say it for yourself and then see if this is happening or not. Whether there may be a different place of articulation where the tongue is rolling back or not. That's a retroflex sound. See that? There could be many more. Our languages are full of them. That's the point I am trying to make. Tongue curls back, hits the flap, that is alveolar ridge, and then comes back. These are specific, these are meaning these sounds are specific features of our languages. In other words, these sounds are not in languages which are spoken in other parts. So anybody trying to learn our languages whose vocal tract is conditioned with the sounds of English or for that matter some other language are going to have difficulty with these sounds. Just like we have difficulty with some of the sounds of English, namely this one. The sound ta in tennis is not as ta. We say, let me say the same word twice and then see if I am making the difference or not. Tennis, tennis. tennis, tennis. Am I saying the first sound differently in when I am doing it twice? What's the difference? Any idea? Not necessarily you have to answer this question. I know the answer to this.
Flexing much in the case of first word.
Flexing much meaning?
It's not bending much.
It's not bending much. In fact, that's correct. In fact, when we say these sounds of English, including the sound in table, table, the tongue is not supposed to roll back. But our languages are full of such sounds, and in our language we don't have this sound. So what we say is what we are conditioned with. Therefore, we end up saying table, tennis, tongue, top, right? However, the way I am going to describe it first, and then I will let you decide the place of articulation for these sounds. The way they are supposed to be said, or the way English speakers say these things, is the following. The tip of the tongue goes in between these two places. Look at this now. See, alveolar is here and upper teeth, it stays somewhere in the middle here. The tip of the tongue just stays somewhere there. Ta, ta, ta. Sometimes these descriptions are given like the following. English ta is softer, right? You may have heard there are stereotypical descriptions of Dravidian languages. The Dravidian languages are very hard. Have you heard this thing? Some of you must have heard this thing. I hear this every time. Many other stereotypical descriptions of not just Dravidian languages, many other languages as well. What they really mean is Dravidian languages have lot of retroflex sounds, which is lot of words with retroflex sounds. For example, if we are talking about non-Dravidian languages that are Indo-Aryan languages, namely Hindi, Oriya, Punjabi, Bengali, you have only these 5. Ta, tha, da, dha, na, and some more. Only a few of them. However, just now I gave you one example of the last sound of the word Tamil. That's another one in Tamil, and there are more. Another Dravidian language, Malayalam, has few more of Dravidian sound, few more of retroflex sounds compared to Tamil. See the point? Therefore, sometimes people say such things which sound stereotypical and at times derogatory. Okay? However, the point is these languages have more retroflex sounds. Coming back to English, English does not have any retroflex sound. This is what people mean when they say ta, English ta is softer. The tongue is not supposed to roll back. And is this place of articulation in your mind for English ta? Right? So what do you think we are going to call that place? Take you back there again. If the other place was alveolar ridge, right, and the previous one was teeth. So somewhere in between alveolar ridge and teeth, we have to find a place for that, and that place is called either, sometimes it's called alveolar, simply alveolar. So these sounds of English are called alveolar sounds. Okay? There are more sounds in English specific to English which could be located in these whole vocal apparatus. There are some sounds which are in our languages also, and in English and Arabic as well, which could be located in this vocal apparatus. Remember, languages are going to share sounds, right? So it's not possible that we have some sounds and that's not in English. I am telling you about retroflex sounds, that these sounds are not there in English. So this is part of the list which are not available in English. But then there are lots of sounds which are there in English. At the same time, there are some sounds of English which are available in our languages too. I am going to show you some of them as well. Is this place of articulation thing clear to everybody? Do you understand now when I said these things are not retroflex sounds? Clear? I think. Sorry?
Can you pronounce the 4 words?
Yeah. So keep the tip of the tongue. This is not a training place where I can tell where I can help you with that, but I can describe that and I can show you at least once. Keep the tip of the tongue near upper teeth. That is upper part of the upper teeth. That's the place of articulation for that. When I say keep it there, what I actually mean is speakers of English get their tip of the tongue there. Table, tongue, teeth, top, as opposed to top, table, tongue. See that? In the second ones, what I am doing is it is getting rolled back. Now, a word of caution here as a footnote. If I end up saying, or if you end up saying not table, table, I want to know from you, given this description so far, is that our fault? Is that a deficiency? If it is not, why is it not deficiency? Conditioning is the key word. When we were growing up with these sounds, with these languages. We are not growing up with sounds, these languages. Our generative apparatus, that is in our mind, that apparatus got clicked with these sounds. And simultaneously our vocal apparatus, when we started speaking one word, many words, few words and full sentence and language, during this process of 5 years or 6 years or 7 years of age, got conditioned with the sounds that we have. Later on, we add one more language to that, where we found there are some sounds, some of those sounds are different. What we end up doing is, we end up we try hard and still the vocal tract doesn't get conditioned. Instead, what happens is we find sounds that are very close to that. Therefore, instead of saying table, we end up saying table. Remember, we don't say table, right? When we say table, we don't say table. What I mean is, it doesn't become dental. What it becomes is retroflex. That's the only difference, and it's not a deficiency because of conditioning, and it's not a problem. If I don't sound like English speakers, that's not a problem. That is because I am not supposed to be doing that. Okay, it's like saying I don't look like someone. What's the problem in that? And this conditioning, trust me, is like DNA. Once conditioned, not going to change. Before conditioning gets matured, or while it is in the process, you can do anything with that. By anything I mean, you have to relocate the child in some other place. Then it gets conditioned, perfectly fine. But once it is done, there is absolutely no way you can change it. Absolutely no way. Therefore, one should not be at all bothered even about if someone points it out to you, that is difficulties of English, particularly in terms of pronunciation, keep speaking the way you do, it's not a problem for you. You are not making any error. It's not a problem. Get the point? And I am saying this thing not because I want to be politically correct. I won't repeat this thing again. I am saying this thing after showing you the technical aspects of these things. Okay? And this is the answer to these questions. All right. Rest of the sounds we have already discussed, have we? And you have seen how aspiration and voicing, did we talk about this or not? We talked about that. Aspiration and voicing are going to give unique feature to these sounds. Many of you know artificial languages, right? Many of you have done courses in artificial languages. What's the most unique feature of artificial language? Java, C+, more unique. No? If I say binary, does this make any difference to you? The use of binary symbols in artificial language, either those binary symbols could be either 0, 1 or in terms of plus minus. Does this make sense? No? Do you see the use of 0, 1 in artificial languages?
As in, we don't actually use them. Compilers convert into that language.
Well, that is the problem. Most of the time when you are doing these things, now you are working with a compiler. When those things are written, artificial languages are primarily based on binary coding. Am I right? 0 or 1. Same thing could be with plus or minus. One of that comes from the binary features of natural language. How does a sound in natural language gets uniqueness? It gets uniqueness only when you look at its binary classification. If we are talking about only aspiration or only voicing, we are not giving each sound distinctive features. The distinctive feature each of these sounds get only when we look at plus aspiration minus voicing. You see this top things? This thing? So 0, 1, application of 0, 1 in binary coding of artificial language is coming from here. And important thing is, you need binary coding to give uniqueness. I don't know how artificial language was taught to you, because to teach artificial languages you don't even need to talk about this thing. But I am taking you somewhere else, that where are those things coming from? The moment we say artificial language, it has to do something with natural language. One of the things that come to artificial language is from here. All right? Okay. With this we can move ahead. We have looked at these places of articulations in details and these manners of articulations in details. There is one more part which I want to talk to you, one more types of sounds, and they are fricative sounds. Okay? Now, let me show you some of the words, and with those words we can talk about some of such sounds. The sound sa in a word like subah, or a sound sha in a word like sham. Do you see the difference between these two sha, to sa and sha? tongue is making this difference. Let's be more precise. Of what? Okay, hold on. First of all, when we say sa, the first one, what's the place of articulation before we look at tongue? Sa, place of articulation. Because these two things are important. To decide any sound or to talk about any sound, the first thing you need to look at is the place of articulation in the vocal apparatus. So, is it located in the front or back? Front. Fine. Where exactly in front?
Tip of the tongue.
No, that's not the place. Tip of the tongue is involved in that, but where does the tip of the tongue go? Teeth. Does it? Sorry? It stays floating, but towards which side? Teeth of the, towards teeth. These sounds, first one is dental, just for that. And then tip of the tongue, what does it do to that teeth? Does it go in between or does it touch it, brush it, right? Sa, sa. And then what is going on with the flow of air? It comes and it's fast. Because of that, fast flow, more flow, and tip of the tongue and teeth. This sound is called dental fricative. Dental fricative. It's important particularly to know this because if we say this is a dental sound, you have seen the dental row. Do you see them here? Do you see that here? No. Now, if it is a dental sound, why is it not here? Remember I told you about this thing. This was designed by Panini approximately 2500 years ago from now. That is around 500 BC. See, it's a great thing that this guy came up with. It's not a mistake if this dental sound is not there. In fact, it is, in my understanding of this thing, it's more than perfect. In the sense that he is not talking about the manner of articulation which is close to what we say fricative here. He is putting them somewhere else. It's a dental sound, but it's somewhere else on the basis of its manner of articulation. Get this thing? Now, wherever it is put, the chart is not important for us. We are not learning alphabet writing system or anything. The chart is not important for us. See the next one. Sham. What's the place of articulation for that? That is, if tongue is involved, you have seen so far, most of the sounds that we have discussed, tongue is involved in some way or the other everywhere, right? What is tongue doing to which place? Palate, right? Palate, and what is it doing? Sure. So this is a palatal sound. Then what is, and again you see, this is not in that list of palatal sounds, right? This is not in the list of palatal sounds. So if this is a palatal sound, what else is happening with tongue? Sh, sh. Try a little harder, shouldn't be very difficult. Say it again. U type of shape. So, correct me if I am describing what you are saying as U type. The two side blades of tongue are touching the palate, and then thus it's making a shape like this, and the flow of air is through that. So this sound is called palatal fricative. Okay, palatal fricative. There are couple of other names given to this type of sound which are not important for us right now. Get this thing? That is sh and sa. So when these sounds are classified, they are classified on a different basis. The last one, something like, I don't know how to say that. When we say a word like purush, right? Somebody who speaks Hindi, Punjabi or Marathi, how do we say that? Which one is that when you are saying that? There is one thing which I didn't put here. How many of you are familiar with Nagari writing system? Some of you. So bear with me, I'll just take one example from there to indicate something. So I'm talking about this kind of thing, which is this. Am I right? Then we have this, which is this, which is the second one here. And then I'm talking about something like this, right? Which is the third one. Third one is this, right? So this is a writing system. This is a symbol for that sound. Get it? Symbol for that sound. Now, when we say the word purush, right? Don't bring the picture of the word, written word in your mind. Tell me how this word sounds. To be more precise, how the last sound, sh, sounds.
Extended and ardent.
It is?
Extended version of sha. It's more harder.
No. Don't tell me that. What I am saying is, you are right. It's harder. But are you able to say that? Or when I say purush, do I sound like this? Actually, every time we say this sound, by we I mean here, speakers of non-Dravidian languages, that is speakers of Indo-Aryan languages particularly, say when they want to say this, they end up saying this one, because this sound is almost lost in Indo-Aryan languages. If we take example of Hindi or Marathi, whenever we want to say this, we actually end up saying this. So in spoken language, this is almost lost. However, this has not gone from writing system, which is another way of saying written language change very slow. Written languages change very slow. Or sometimes it doesn't need to. It's just an example of a particular symbol which we write but we don't say. And right now I am talking about spoken language. And in a spoken language what has happened is, this is lost, this is what we have. There is another interesting part, as a footnote I can tell you, in some languages, namely Bangla, this also does not exist. If they want to say this one, they would end up saying this one. Now, these are the things which help people make stereotypes. But trust me, these are not, I mean, in the lighter vein, people can use these things for fun. However, these are not funny things in nature. These are exclusively dependent on conditioning of vocal tract. Okay? On other hand, some languages does not have this one. They only have this one. For example, languages spoken in eastern UP or not East, yeah, Eastern UP and Western Bihar, or for that matter entire Bihar, to all the way to Assam, they don't have this one, they have just this one. So if a speaker of Hindi from Bihar would say Sam instead of Sham, and that's not their fault either, it's just that it's an output of conditioning. Okay, if someone wants to say this thing Subah, probably a Bangla speaker would end up saying Shubah. Just listen to them carefully, you will get these things. And this is lost. However, this is not lost in Dravidian languages. This is intact in Dravidian languages because this is a retroflex sa. Retroflex sha. Sometimes ago probably this was available in Hindi also through Sanskrit, now it's lost. Dravidian languages have not lost it because Dravidian languages have more retroflex sounds. So it's not too expensive, quote unquote, for them to retain this one. However, for Indo-Aryan languages, it's too expensive to retain. Again, expensive under quotes. Expensive simply means human mind works with economy. There is a principle always under operation in human mind which is called principle of economy. It does not like redundancies. It doesn't like complexity. When we say human mind does not like complexity, we actually mean it doesn't like redundancies. If there are only few words where you are going to find this sound retroflex sha, it's going to remove it and merge in favor of the existing one which is very close. That's called economy of principle, which is under operation by human mind. So, and this is an answer to the loss. We described this, that something has lost, right? When we say Hindi or other Indo-Aryan languages have lost it, it's not that it slipped out of their pocket. It's not that they were traveling and they forgot it somewhere. It has disappeared. What could be compelling motivation for that disappearance? We are talking about language. There has to be something compelling, and compelling motivation for that loss is ongoing principle, under operation principle of economy in human mind. See this thing? Because of abundance of retroflex sounds, such loss is not visible in Dravidian languages. Get it? So these are the important things to keep in mind while we understand sounds and its structure. All right? One more sound and then we stop. We often find a sound called fa, right? Please read the words mentioned here. I'm going to have to spend few more minutes on this thing, which I do on Monday. Okay, but I just want to introduce this to you. When we say a word like fool, right, and a word like pool, do you hear the difference between the two? Fool and pool. What's the difference? You can see that difference.
Difference in case of PH and
Lips touching, both the lips touching in which one?
PH.
Pa, right? That is because this is a bilabial sound. Both the lips must touch. Now, the first one is fa, where lips are not touching each other. Fa. Now, this sound fa, the first one, is not in abundance in our languages. And the second one, pa, where lips are touching is not available in English. So when we learn an English word like fool, it's highly likely that many of us would end up saying fool. Okay? However, these two words are completely different things because of the first sound of these two words. Are you with me? You see the difference between the two sounds? Now, what's the place of articulation? We already know the place of articulation for pa in the word pool or pa in the word phal. Heard these two words, phal and pool? We know the place of articulation of these two sounds. What's the place of articulation of fa? Clearly both the lips are not touching, so where is the place of articulation for that? Fa, right? Upper teeth and lower lip. So, what do we call it? And that's going to be another place of articulation, another type of sound in this vocal apparatus, right? So, lower teeth and lower lips and upper teeth. So, what will be the sound? Simple, lips and teeth, labiodental. That's called labiodental. I am sorry, I shouldn't have expected that term from you. Labiodental, right? And again, what about the flow of air? Is it too much or like too much? Therefore, it is classified as fricative. Fa is labiodental fricative. See this thing? Now, fa is not in abundance in our language. There are few more which I discuss with you on Monday, and then we will close this part of discussion on sounds, and then we go to word formation processes where we see application of these things in words, okay, and possible constraints on word formation. Thank you.